WDF Memphis. It's time for Wolo and Friends on Sports 56. Here is your host, the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
Happy Friday. It's Italian Fest weekend. Always a fun time. I've had the honor of judging the last couple of years, so I'll be doing it tonight and tomorrow. Looking forward to it. I'm just hoping the rain will hold off. This has been the craziest week. Like, you know it's going to rain at some point. You just don't know when. And you don't know if it'll be just a little tiny drizzle or a big downpour, which Ron Childers will tell you can produce in 20 minutes a half inch of rain. I mean, it's crazy. But let's hope for the Italian Fest's sake that the rain is minimal. We got a busy show today. Victor Wembanyama came to play last night in San Antonio. OKC did not. And because of that, we got a Game 7. And interestingly enough, it's the Thunder that are 3.5-point favorites. Landon Schmidt, I got to ask you, after what you saw last night, Wembanyama was fierce on both sides of the ball. Oh, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had his worst playoff game maybe ever. It's the worst performance by an MVP in an elimination game, because they could have eliminated the Spurs last night. In the history of the game, would you have made the Spurs the favorite?
Making them the favorite.
I mean, not the Spurs, excuse me. OKC in OKC. 3.5-point favorites.
3.5-point favorites. I mean, I think the home court advantage definitely helps OKC. It's been helping on both sides of the ball. I think if that game was in OKC last night, OKC probably would have had more fight in them. So I don't know. I'm not against that at all.
Well, I will say this. In this series, only one team has won 2 games in a row, and that was the Thunder in games 2 and 3.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that with Andy Schiffman. The Knicks, I think, are the underdog no matter which team plays. I think OKC has a better chance of winning the championship than the Spurs would against the Knicks. Of course, Mitchell Robinson's injury is a factor. And we'll talk about that. Also, anti-tanking rules voted in. The only dissent came from the Grizzlies, because they're the only ones to really lose in all of this. They would have Utah's pick, a top 5 pick next year. Under the rules, you cannot have 3 straight years of a top 5 pick. And therefore, the Grizzlies would not get that pick. And it looks like that's the way it's going to be. Andy Schiffman on all of that. Memphis FC opened up last night at Mike Rose. I'm wondering if Channel 5's new station, which is 907 on Xfinity, it's called Memphis Sports and Entertainment Network, I think, Messin. They did not carry the game. I wonder if they're going to carry some. There's a sports engine. I've gotten a link. Tim Van Horn is doing these games. He does a great job with it. I'm wondering if they're going to pick it up, but this team now 0-2. They played their first home game, about 1,500 people. I am told the atmosphere at Mike Rose was terrific. Mike Rose has been spruced up a little bit. I'm going to try to make a few of their games. Could not last night, and I really thought I could watch it on Channel 5 at the same time, going back and forth, not on Channel 5, but on Messin, at the same time that the Game 6 was going on between San Antonio and OKC, but that was not meant to be. Sometimes you got the Memphis FC. I keep wanting to say 901 FC, but that's long gone. Memphis FC had a 1-0 lead, gave up a weird goal at the end of the first half, and that changed the tide in this Louisiana crew. They've been around a while. They've got experience, and they made the right adjustments at the half and sort of dominated that. As always, we end week 1 with Jonah Dillon on the Tigers, and we'll chat about the AAC metrics. You know, BetMGM came out. ESPN has an efficiency rating, and all of the G6 and the group of 6 and the American were in there. So we'll chat with Jonah about all of that. And speaking of the AAC meetings, they have wrapped up down in St. Petersburg, Florida. Steve Earhart was there. He is going to join us, and I meant to tell you that. We may have to call him. Steve Earhart is going to join us in literally about 2.5 minutes, so that should be a lot of fun. I really do not understand what happened with OKC last night. They just didn't come to play, and that, for me, is hard to believe. I thought the Spurs would win the game. I really did, because I think they're that close. I do kind of suspect that OKC will win Game 7, but I was shocked at the lack of hustle, the lack of intensity that a defending championship team had when put in a position to knock off a team. And now Victor Wembanyama was terrible in Game 5. You knew he was going to be better in Game 6. He's a weird dude, too. By the way, didn't talk to the media, got chastised and fined by the NBA for not owning up after he laid his egg in Game 5. But did you see him last night in the post-game interview when they'd won? Like, he had 3-word answers to both questions and then ran away without a chance for any kind of follow-up. I don't know what his deal is. Maybe he doesn't like the girl from NBC, or he's frustrated with it all. And that's part of the problem. When you're there for the first time, you got a whole other series to go. Holy smokes! Maybe that gets to you. I don't know, but Victor Wembanyama is in a position to really be a hero and a charismatic guy, and clearly the face of the NBA. And if he's going to act that way in these post-game interviews, he's not going to get there. In the meantime, I'm sitting in the Family Leisure Studios, and I do want to remind you, they do have the ultimate pool party going on where you can get an above-ground pool starting at under $4,000. They also are doing in-ground pools. Now, they didn't always do that. They're doing them now, and I mean, they're state-of-the-art, and you can get them for under $50,000. All in-stock patio furniture, price to move. You can get a 5-piece patio furniture set starting at under $1,000. You get a free umbrella and base with select patio furniture sets. And if you mention us, just say Wolo or say Sports 56, say Landon Schmidt, doesn't matter. You reference us, you get $200 off the purchase of a pool or a spa. So get on over to I-40 and Wooden Road. So go see Billy, go see Lindsay. Say hello from Sports 56. In the meantime, we head down to St. Petersburg. Steve Earhart standing by. This has been a crazy week with a lot of meetings, both in different parts of the state in Florida, the SEC down by the Destin area, this one in St. Petersburg for the American. What was, if anything, accomplished at the American meetings? Good morning, Steve Earhart.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Dave. The SEC meetings were in Destin, and Harold Grader from our office was there, and then the Big 12 meetings were in Dallas. At the same time, Kevin Alexander from our office was there, and then I came down to the American, and of course, University of Memphis being part of the American, and I thought this conference is really is working hard and doing a good job. A classy situation down here, and I want to make sure that the entire Navy contingent was here. The superintendent, Marine General and his wife, the Mike Kelly, the AD and his wife, the head coach and they wanted to pass along to the people of Memphis what a great time they had here in Memphis at last year's Autos on Liberty Bowl. They said they were treated so well, rolled out the red carpet, and I do want to send that thank you on to everybody, the Peabody who hosted Navy, and then all the folks that rolled out the red carpet for them. They said we'd love to come back again, and just thanks to everyone in Memphis. But
did they say anything about making the Army-Navy game a league game?
I did not bring that up, but that's something that's sacrosanct, and the superintendent did talk about how he had talked to the president about writing that executive order to make sure and maintain the Army Navy, and that is an American truth. That's such an important, and when we talk about the regular season and preserving the regular season, which is the big issue now about are they really going to kind of destroy, in my opinion, destroy a lot of the great parts of the regular season of college football to expand the CFP. So the Army-Navy game is certainly a huge part of America, and it's so important to so many millions of people. But yes, there's a lot going on. None of the conferences see a pathway for what's going to happen in the future. We all know that the Big Ten being pushed by Fox, because remember, and your listeners an astute group, the whole reason that the Big Ten is pushing to double the size of the playoffs is because right now ESPN, which basically they have the SEC, that's their main television partner. Fox has the Big Ten, and the last time the bidding went for the playoffs, Fox did not bid. Then they found out, how successful ESPN was with it, so now they're pushing to open it up because the contracts that are in place now, as long as there's up to 14 teams in the CFP, the College Football Playoff, then ESPN has exclusive rights to that. If they expand further, then it can be opened up, and then Fox can get their nose in underneath that tent. So that's what's really going on right now.
How did the Big Ten get the ACC, the Big 12, and Notre Dame on board? Because they seem to all want 24 teams. I get it. They get access, and they get a part of the money. I know the Big Ten wants Fox in. That's quite obvious. But Petiti has gotten all these other guys on board. It's the SEC now that I think is trying to angle to get something to agree to 24 teams. They're not going to break away like Kirby Smart said. That might have been one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
Well, and it's really a debate right now because most of them, American fans, really understand how important late season games are. If you say, let's take the Michigan-Ohio State game. If by the last game of the year, that's the traditional spot, and whether you say Auburn, Alabama, whatever, if one of those teams already has their spot clinched, are they going to play their top quarterbacks and running backs? I mean, there's a lot of lessons in the NBA and in the NFL, and when you saw, what was it, one of the NFL teams, I won't call them out, their quarterback started one play just so he could keep his streak alive, but then he didn't play the rest of the game in a couple of the last games of the season. So I think they really put at risk the regular season of college football, which is so important.
Well, that point's well taken, but you can take the other side of it too. What if Tennessee is playing Vandy, and that game is to make it into the playoffs?
Yeah, no, you're right, but I think your original question, why is the Big 12 and the ACC? I think it's generally the push is coming from the coaches because they're looking at it as a situation where they get their bonuses, and if they can make the playoffs, that's a success for their season, and the more access, the better. I think they can see that the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Alabamas are all going to dominate, but if they expand more, they have a better opportunity to get in. And so I think a lot of that, from what I gather from these meetings, is coming from the coaches, and that because the money issues have not been settled. And I think Commissioner Sankey of the SEC says it correctly. Are you really going to give up and I think the value of their SEC championship game is way understated. I personally think it's probably worth more like $150 million instead of $50 million because
I heard
revenues.
I heard $100 million, and I don't know how they would make that up. But that's the only one that really makes that kind of money.
Exactly, because they've established it so well in that soiree there in Atlanta, that Fiesta in Atlanta, they make so much ancillary money that I don't think, whether it's 100 or 150, and are they really going to be able to replace that money? And remember, for example, last year, the Citrus Bowl did a higher rating than a couple of those first-round playoff games. So, and neither Fox or ESPN has put any definitive numbers out there. How much more will we pay for these extra games? Now, Fox is sort of pushing it, but is there really going to be that amount of money to replace the money they get from the bowl system, and will they lose to the regular season, which has made so much a difference? I mean, and Dave, you've covered Tigers basketball forever, and sometimes some of those regular season games don't mean as much, but boy, in football, every single game means an awful lot. So you're right, it's a heck of a debate. You've got the SEC on one side, and you've got the Big Ten on the other side, and the truth is, and again, I think you've talked about it, is that those are the only two conferences that have the votes. Several years ago, and I think some of these conference commissioners wish they could have their vote back. They all voted to say, we're going to give the control of the college football playoffs to those two conferences. So they don't even have a vote. So when the ACC and the Big 12 says, we'd like to have 24 24, where on the Big Ten side, really doesn't matter. But there's an awful lot of pressure, you're right, on the SEC, and some of their coaches are saying, well, it's better for me if we've got more access, and then I've got a better chance to have my contract, and to have a successful year, because the coaches, how many coaches were, switched last year? I mean, people should have a show on that, Dave. All the new coaches coming in this year, there's at least four or five new coaches that left the American and went to the SEC. So it's not going to get settled right away. My guess is it will be probably in the fall before they ever get it settled, but they will be pushing up again to the December 1st deadline. Remember, This year all the bowls are the same. We're in place. We have our contracts with the SEC, the Big 12, and the American all in place, and this coming Wednesday we'll be announcing, our time and date. We're going to have a great time and date for the 67th continuous AutoZone Liberty Bowl for coming up at the end of this football season.
Let me ask you, you had representatives at all these meetings, Big 12, SEC, American. What do you think will happen here with the playoff? It sure seems to me there's enough leverage by the Big Ten with the addition of Notre Dame and all these other conferences, all the remaining Power 4 conferences, that they want 24. It sure seems to me it's going to go that way. I don't know how much leverage or more leverage or what exactly the SEC wants. I'm sure there'll be some maneuvering, but it seems like it's going that way. I would love your feel for that.
Yeah, my feel, because when it comes down to the bottom line, they're going to have some data, and that's what, again, Commissioner Sankey has always said. Nobody has really said, okay, what's the differential in money? Because that's what, unfortunately, college sports has got themselves in a box. It's all about the money now, and they've screwed it up because of the House settlements, and then this monitoring system that nobody's following, and the tampering and that kind of thing. So when they finally get to the bottom line, how much money will be incremental revenue? I'm thinking it may go to 16. That's my own personal opinion, but you're 100% right, Dave. There's an awful lot of pressure to go to 24 now, and Fox is the key. Is Fox really going to come up with the amount of money that is going to make sense to have the SEC say, okay, we'll move off of their right now? My sense is that if you took a vote with the Big 12, they'd say, let's stay at 12, because I think they were ready to go to 16, but then Fox says, well, wait, at 16, remember I told you ESPN has control of 14. They want to get it wide open so they can bid and get involved in the CFP. So that's why the Big Ten pushing for 24. So you're 100% right. There's an awful lot of pressure to go to 24. Will the SEC hang in there and say it's either 12 or 16? The Big Ten came out and said, well, they won't go for 16. I know this, ESPN, which, that's ESPN and ABC, they want certainty. They don't want to have this situation where they keep banging on. Are they going to go for another 1-year extension? Or are they going to, the Big Ten at one time said, well, let's go 2 years at 16 and then talk about going the latter 3 years. Remember, this year is already in the books for an extension of last year's six-year deal. So they got 5 more years left. So I know ESPN says, hey, we can't keep doing this and saying, well, we don't know where we're going to be. They want certainty of the next 5 years. And right now ESPN is pushing for that. So you've got a lot of coaches pushing for 24, those 3 leagues that you say pushing for 24, the SEC, which has the final veto or approval one way or the other, and they're saying, let's be careful, let's make sure we have some real data before we just jump in there and cancel our very successful SEC championship game. So that's where it stands now. I think it's going to be another 4 or 5 months before anything happens.
All right. Last thing for our good friend from the AutoZone Liberty Bowl, that would be the Big Cheese, the head honcho Steve Earhart. There is a bill that's a bipartisan bill called Protect College Sports Act, It's sponsored by, on the Republican side, Ted Cruz, and the Democratic side, Maria Cantwell. And it basically would limit athletes to one transfer without penalty. After that, they'd have to sit out. A 5-year max eligibility, 19 to 24, or once you enter, you've got 5 years. Play them all, but you don't get any more than 5 years. Prohibit former pro athletes, like we've seen from Europe or even the G League, come into play in collegiate athletics. That would be prohibited. They would prohibit schools from poaching a coach during a sports season, so you couldn't talk to a college football coach till after the championship game. There would also possibly be antitrust exemptions that could come into play, even though they were turned down by the Supreme Court in 2021. That would, we all know there's a revenue share of 21 mil, but everybody's circumventing that with NIL money. And the Sports Commission already turned down Nebraska for $1 million deals that there was nothing that was except just money. There were no services rendered. That was turned down. There would actually be this commission that could enforce these things. What do you think will happen with this act? Do you think it will ever be enacted?
Yeah, that's a great summary there of that bill, and a lot of good points in there. We've got to get rid of this tampering thing, both with coaches and players, and the 5-year rule, I think, is terrific because it's basically migrant workers anymore, if you want to use the word, or transient players, and sometimes we're forgetting a little bit with the educational part of that. Are we really getting a shot, at these guys getting, real degrees there by jumping around so much? Now, unfortunately, the publicity is all about the very limited number of top players that are moving around, but we got to look out for the other 100 players on a roster in football, not the top 5. So I have a sneaking hunch that might get passed because they built in some thought about a medical fund to help out all universities, and including HBCUs and so on. And I know Ted Cruz is respected now. He's got the Democratic senator on board as well. I think it would be a good positive thing if they could get it through. But then you've got a lot of people pushing back and just say whatever, and the political divide in our country. So it's going to be a stretch, but a good starting point. It's much better than what the other bill, the score bill, that had so much anxiety in it and that kind of thing. So I'm hopeful that it gets passed, but boy, it's a 50-50 toss.
Well, yeah, there's some things in there like pooling portions of the big money from the two big conferences, the SEC, which signed a $3 billion 10-year deal last year. They bring in about $1 billion a year, so does the Big Ten. They want to start pooling some of that TV money, and they're not going to go for that. So I don't know what will happen. That's part of it. There's probably going to be a rewrite to a bunch of this, but I think that those main parts will have a chance to pass.
I will hope so. We need to go up and lobby you, Dave. You could be a good lobbyist.
There you go. I'd love to.
Speaking for the American public, Dave Wolosh. And Dave, before we go, I know you're looking forward to broadcasting your show from Southland on Monday with our annual tournament out there. I know Penny Hardaway and Bill Hargrave from the University of Memphis will be playing. I know you're playing in the afternoon after you broadcast in the morning, so we're really looking forward to that event at Southland on Monday morning.
And the dinner on Sunday with the auction. We're all looking forward to that as well. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. We've run long as always, but I'll see you Sunday night and then again Sunday at the Hilton.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That's Steve Ehrhardt, Big Cheese Head Honcho of the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. He's brought you in part by Southern Security. You know, they're not for profit. They can literally do things that other banks cannot. If you need cash, let me tell you, you can refinance your auto loan with Southern Security. You won't have a payment for 60 days. They'll finance up to 115% of the current value of your vehicle. And Southern Security does that for up to 72 months. So to find out how you can put more cash in your pocket, call and talk to a human being. 901-452-7900 or go on the website, southernsecurity.com. 7 locations, always the best service and always the newest technology. See that new office in Collierville. Southern Securities, your home team credit union, federally insured by NCUA. We take a break. We're going to Chicago. Our good friend Andy Schiffman, the agent from Priority Sports on the NBA. He comes your way in a minute.
Start your day with Sports 56 Mornings with Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy. Weekday mornings from 7 to 10, right here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Hey everybody, I hope you're ready for summer because all the new Silverados are right here in Olive Branch at All-Star Chevrolet. No interest financing or $7,000 in cash. So go big with a brand new HD Silverado and make no payments all summer. No payments all summer with your new Trax, Colorado truck, or new Traverse with the third row seating because your good credit deserves it. And this is Military Appreciation Month and our friends at All-Star love our military. In May, get a $1,000 Military Appreciation bonus on almost every Chevy model here, 1,000. And if you want a barely driven certified Chevy or the hottest pre-owned Chevys on the market, All-Star is spot on. Tahoe, Suburbans, even Trailblazers. And for all your fleet and commercial vehicle needs, express cargo passenger vans and all, they're here. That's right, at All-Star Chevy because they're a top-rated business elite dealer. Together, let's drive. Don't miss the Ready for Summer event going on now in Olive Branch at All-Star Chevrolet or go to allstarautogroup.com.
Tito's Handmade Vodka is America's favorite vodka for a reason. From the first legal distillery in Texas, Tito's is 6 times distilled till it's just right and naturally gluten-free, making it a high-quality spirit that mixes with just about anything, from the smoothest martinis to the best Bloody Marys. Tito's is known for giving back, teaming up with nonprofits to serve its communities and do good for dogs. Make your next cocktail with Tito's. Distilled and bottled by 5th Generation Incorporated, Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume. Savor responsibly.
Hi, I'm Ryan Saharovich, a proud partner with NST Injury Attorneys. For over 35 years, we've been fighting for Memphis families after serious accidents when insurance companies are trying to pay as little as possible. If you've been injured, the call is free, and you don't pay unless we win.
NST is the way to go. Call 683-7000.
NST is the way to go. Call 683-7000 or visit nstlaw.com.
Hey, Mid-South, I got him on the line, Rock and Ronnie, ready to help you get your Hyundai on. At Gossett Hyundai South Mount Moriah. Rock and Ronnie, how you going to do it?
How about this, Randy? A 2026 Hyundai Elantra SE, $203.21 a month.
You got to love that Elantra deal. What else you got?
I've got a 2026 Hyundai Palisade SEL, $215.62 a month.
That's awesome. Hey, I hear you got a great deal on Tucson.
You better believe it, Randy. A 2026 Hyundai Tucson SE, 33 miles per gallon highway, $216.40 a month.
That's what I'm talking about, Rock and Ronnie. Plus, you get owner assurance with America's best 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty.
Come see me, Rock and Ronnie, today at Gossett Hyundai South, 2660 Mount Moriah, or shop online at HyundaiMountMoriah.com.
That's Gossett Hyundai South. Rock and Ronnie will be waiting for you.
Elantra TU 188.79, MSRP 24,565, Palisade TU 096.984, MSRP 45.75, Tucson T8 69.7820, MSRP 31.805, includes all rebates and incentives, PF 895, excludes tax final license, but better see the list for details on Bell Team 1,
Now back to Wolo and Friends on Sports 56. Here once again is the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
Wow, the stock market going crazy today. The Dow Jones just went over 51,000. The S&P 500 approaching 7,600. Maybe this war with Iran is going to really come to a close. The market seems to be reflecting that. That is obviously really, really good news. In the meantime, we're headed to Chicago momentarily. Our agent from Priority Sports on the NBA, that's Andy Schiffman. He's brought to you by Miramichi. What a complete golf experience that is. You know, you can go back 7,000 yards. You can play it under 6,000 yards if you're old like me. Either way, it's competitive. Either way, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And if you want to learn the game, it's got the best practice facilities of any public golf course I've ever seen. From sand trap that teaches you how to do it, basically. Then they've got the putting green. They've got the chipping green. Got big, huge driving range with its membership area. You can be a member, by the way. And they have different rates and different packages, but you can be a member of Miramichi. It's got the great clubhouse. It's got the great deck on up above 9 and 18 with the best view in Shelby County. You want a complete golf experience, you go to Miramichi. And I do remind you, it's not in Millington. It's in Woodstock. 25 minutes from my driveway. You got to go see it. Tell them we sent you when you go to Miramichi. We go to Chicago. Andy Schiffman standing by. That was an egg OKC laid last night in San Antonio. Were you surprised at how lethargic maybe the Thunder were and how great Wembanyama was?
Well, I think for me it was less about the lethargy of the Thunder, and you've seen this now in this series, how strong each team is at home. And I think with the Spurs, they were just clicking on all cylinders, and during the broadcast, you probably saw it as well. And this is every game. The Thunder, anytime they look up and they see 7-4 Wemby anywhere in the vicinity, they have to move the ball. They don't go into paint. I mean, it changes the entire dynamic of what they're trying to do. And that was absolutely the case last year on so many possessions. Obviously, in the first half, they kept it close. The game was within reach. But then the Spurs just took over. And even when he was out, at the end of the third quarter there, they still maintained that lead. They got out and ran in transition. Stephon Castle was great. You had Harrison Barnes coming in, knocking down big shots. And so it's the Wemby effect. I'm excited for the game tomorrow. I was hoping this series would go 7 games. I was thinking it would, and it's exactly what I wanted, because on the other side, it really wasn't that exciting, at least for me as someone that has 2 players in the Knicks. That was exciting, but I love seeing OKC and San Antonio. I think you absolutely, clearly have the 2 top teams in the West facing off, and it's back and forth. And look, I absolutely also think, Dave, I think San Antonio could win tomorrow night. I do not think this is going to be a lopsided victory. I'm really excited to watch.
It's the Thunder by 3.5 by the betting in Vegas.
Yes.
I guess that's probably right. There's only one team that's won 2 games in a row in the series, and that was OKC games 2 and 3. Yep. I guess if Wembanyama plays like he did last night, I mean that may change the whole dynamic of this thing. I can't see SGA playing as badly though as he did last night.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you need to have Wemby staying out of foul trouble. I think really that's the only caveat, I think, if you're San Antonio. But for sure, if you're OKC, you need high productivity from SGA. Obviously you have Chet, you got Hardenstein, you got Caruso, they got a deep bench. So that's when I think it's really going to be competitive, because they're going to leave it all out there.
Would you have voted SGA's Player of the Year over Wembanyama? And it's funny to hear in San Antonio them going MVP, yeah. MVP for Wembanyama.
Even more pronounced because of who they're facing.
Right.
I mean, I always love an underdog, and not that Wemby's an underdog, but I've always been a fan, Dave, of like a player that has carried a team this far that maybe you didn't think that team would go as far. And I think we all saw the progression and the improvement from San Antonio the last 2 years, right? But this year, I thought, okay, they have a real good shot to finish in the top 4 in the West. They have a real good shot to probably make it. And what they've done now, I think realistically, it's all because of Wemby. And it's hard. It's a hard question to answer, right? Because I don't want to take away anything from SGA's stellar season and what he's done. And it's kind of like this, for me, it's like almost like all right, like I already know him. He's a known commodity in the MVP discussion. I want something new and fresh, and that's my own flaw, right? And that's, I think, why some people may not look at Jokic every single year as like a top candidate, but he does it every year. And that's what SGA does. He's doing this every single year, every time out. There's a reason they're the best team in the West. But I don't know. If you're asking me personally, I maybe would have voted for Wemby, but it's not because I didn't really think SGA was worthy of it, if that makes sense.
All right. On the other side, you mentioned the Knicks. You got a couple players on that team. They've won 11 games in a row. They're the underdog either way by futures from Vegas. I think actually the Thunder have a better chance of beating them than the Spurs do. Part of that is because the Spurs, just don't have finals in their DNA, and OKC does. I'm worried about you, though. You have 2 players on that team, man. If you got to pay for tickets, holy smokes! Are you getting 100?
I that don't need to pay for tickets, so that's a good thing. But let's not say tickets. I'll say ticket, because I was in New York last week, Dave. I was at games 1 and 2 against Cleveland, and we actually also have 6 guys on Cleveland. Max Struess, Dan Merrill, Dennis Schroeder, the other guys. So, yes, I was there in attendance, single, 1 ticket. I don't know if I'll be able to get away and go to a finals game in MSG. Just a lot going on with draft preparation. I would love to. I think Mark might. But, oh my God, what an atmosphere that was. I mean, I know this is kind of more of a tangential conversation, but just as a basketball fan, being in Game 1 in the Garden, watching the Knicks overcome the 22-point deficit,
that was crazy.
Really watching Jalen Brunson do it. I mean, the roof was blowing off.
Yeah.
It was unreal.
Well, that was the series right there. Cleveland was dead.
Absolutely.
That was incredible. Can you believe you'd ever see the day where one courtside ticket will cost $100,000 for this finals?
Right? And if it wasn't New York, you wouldn't see that. Absolutely not. But it's exciting. I tell you, it's amazing. And then look, the Knicks now are in a similar position they were before the Cleveland series. You had Cleveland go 7 games against Detroit, and the Knicks had about 8 or 9 days off after beating Philadelphia. And now it's not quite as stretched out, but you're still going to have a really, really refreshed New York Knicks team after obliterating Cleveland. They're going to have, over a week off between games.
Yeah, no, Russ could go in. Mitchell Robinson's hurt. I'm sure he's going to try to play with a busted pinky. But
yeah.
Do you think the Knicks can win over either of these teams from the West?
I think they can. Now, I agree with you. I think they're a better matchup against San Antonio. I think that San Antonio has a lot of good wings. If you're New York, you have to find a way to do what you've been doing consistently, which is shooting the ball as they have been. It is unbelievable what they've done from the perimeter. Guys like Josh Hart, Landry Shamet in the Eastern Conference Finals against Cleveland was playing at an elite level, all-star starter level, 12 for 13 from 3.
Yeah.
I have Miles McBride who played well. I need some more consistency from my guy Deuce. But I think for me, the big matchup is inside if it is in San Antonio, right? So you've got Cat, you've got, let's say, potential Mitchell Robinson, but what does that do if you don't have Mitchell Robinson with the broken finger against Wemby? Because Wemby and Cat are 2 very different players, and I think Wemby could be very crafty to get Cat in foul trouble, and then I do think it becomes a bit problematic. But to your point, I don't think they have anyone that can stop Jalen Brunson. And on OKC side, it's going to be Brunson versus SGA just about every single possession, I feel like. And although I do think having, again, different players, right, but the Knicks did a really good job of neutralizing Donovan Mitchell. Now, he also had some physical issues going on in that series, cramping.
Yeah, no doubt.
Kind of looks like a shell himself the first games. And Harden took his foot off the gas pedal.
Oh, he's old. Let's be honest. Yeah. The Cavs didn't play defense like either of these 2 Western Conference teams.
They just gave up.
Yeah.
I mean, the turnovers they had, they weren't getting back in transition whatsoever. Really, in the front court, you forgot Jared Allen was even out there at times. It was all just Evan Mobley. So I think for me, the matchup inside is key. But I think that the Knicks stand a chance in with either opponent. I do. I think they could win. And will they? I don't know. I think it's going to be a competitive series. I think it's a series that could go 6 games. Obviously, I'd love to see it go 7 games. But I don't look at either team coming out of the West saying, okay, well, they're just going to steamroll over the Knicks no matter what. I don't see that happening. I think it's going to be really competitive.
All right, last thing. You got 2 minutes. Anti-tank thing got voted in 29-1. The Grizzlies are the only dissenting vote because they're the ones that lose because you can't have 3 top 5 picks. And, it's unfortunate. They made that deal with Utah before this rule came into effect. I thought they should be grandfathered in. Lottery goes from 14 to 16. The 4th and the 10th to the 10th actually have the best odds. The bottom 3 can fall all the way to 12. The second round is going to swap the orders. What do you think of it?
I mean, I guess it's positive in the sense that it does eliminate teams incentivizing losing, right? And I think it does accomplish that. But I don't necessarily think it's a fix-all cure because inevitably there will be teams that just by the nature of the season or the nature of the talent, whatever you want to call it, whatever the factors may be, Dave, they're going to find themselves at the bottom of the standings, and then all of a sudden they're penalized for that. So, look, it's still a broken system in my opinion. I mean, maybe this helps a little bit in terms of the fandom, let's say, and the intrigue of watching superstars in the NBA. I do think it will disincentivize teams from resting rotational starters, star players, as they have been in the past. And to your point, if you're Memphis, you're with it, and I would be too. It really, really screws them. They made that trade, trading away Jaren Jackson, expecting to get a top 5 pick.
Yep.
And now, due to no fault of their own, everything is turned upside down. And, I don't know, if it's a top 5, it's automatically just moved to 6. If it's that Utah pick, which you might think, like, okay, well, if you're going from 4 to 6 or 5 to 6, that matters. That absolutely matters. The disparity in talent sometimes, the picking potentially 1, 2, or 3 versus 6 in a draft, it can be pretty big. And you're thinking about the impact that has on your roster for years to come. Think about what the Grizzlies would look like had they not drafted at 2 and gotten John Morant, but instead drafted at 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I can't remember who was 4 or 5 in that draft, very honestly. So it really does change the landscape, and I empathize with Zach and the Grizzlies. I think it is unfair, and so I would have voted the exact same way.
He's our agent from Chicago, Priority Sports. That's Andy Schiffman. Have a great weekend, my friend. We'll talk next Friday.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dave. You too.
That is Andy, brought to you by another guy who understands the importance of a point guard. Because he's a point guard. When it comes to real estate, you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Sheldon Rosengarten, Mark Spensdorf, because, and I've heard this many times, if you're serious about anything, you got to have a plan, and then you got to work the plan. Well, he's got this strategy, this strategic marketing program that has worked for 40 years. And the guy works the plan. He works 365, 24/7. That's why he's known as Mr. Three-Putt. He can't hit a golf ball because he can never practice because he's always working for you. And I'll tell you, put this to the test. Call 483-0546. I bet he answers by the second ring. And then you're off and running. He says talk to 2 to 3 real estate brokers. Just make sure he's one of them, and then ask about that strategy. You can also get a hold of him at MemphisRelocate.com. You want to get to the closing table the quickest with the best price, make your money the fastest? Call Sheldon. MemphisRelocate.com or 483-0546. We're headed downtown. The beat writer for the Commercial Appeal on Memphis football and the Grizz. That would be Jonah Dillon, and he comes your way next.
Add a little fun to your lunch break. Join Johnny Radio for Sports 56 Happy Hour from 11 to 1 every weekday on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Your home is your best investment, so why not make it the best it can be with help from Gates Lumber? Start with your front door, serving 2 purposes, curb appeal and security. Gates has solid construction doors built for security, durability, and beauty. See and compare wood, steel, and fiberglass options side by side at Gates Showroom. It's easier to choose when you can see and touch real doors with real assistance from knowledgeable staff helping you choose the right door for your home and budget. So don't just replace your door, upgrade your protection, and Gates Lumber is the right choice. Family owned and operated, serving you for over 100 years with free estimates, free delivery, competitive prices, and quality products. Call 901-942-3201, go to gateslumber.com, or come by their showroom, 1253 South Bellevue Boulevard. Gates Lumber, celebrating over 100 years with a passion for craftsmanship since 1920.
Cleanliness is next to impossible unless you call High-Low Commercial Services. For 15 years, High-Low's dedicated team has been cleaning offices throughout the Mid-South. High-Low's janitorial services are customized to your business. Clean once, quarterly, or ongoing, and get the JRD guarantee. We clean until you're satisfied. High-Low Commercial Services, the biggest and the best in the Mid-South. Visit MrCleanTeam.com. That's MrCleanTeam, MrCleanTeam.com for High-Low Commercial Services.
Hey, Mid-South, you ready for love at first drive? We got it covered with the main man Marshall at Gossett Hyundai on the Pike.
That's right, Randy. Check this out. Brand new 2026 Hyundai Tucson SE, 33 miles per gallon. We got it at $216.40 a month. That's just over $7 a day. Or the all-new 2026 Hyundai Elantra SE, $203.21 a month. That's less than $7 a day for your brand new ride.
That's amazing. And if you're into technology, you got to check out Palisade.
Get your tech on in 2026 Hyundai Palisade SEL for only $215.62 a month, Randy.
And every Gossett Hyundai's got owner assurance with America's best 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty.
Come see me, the main man Marshall, where we're charging forward and charging less at Gossett Hyundai, 1956 Covenant Pike, or visit online at HyundaiGossett.com 24/7.
Electric TU 188,709, MSRP 24,565, Palisade TU 096,984, MSRP 45,075, Tucson TH 69,7020, MSRP 31,805, includes all rebates and incentives, PF 895, excludes tax on license with approved credit. See dealers for key details off title beginning of the month. Dealers back home.
Now back to Wolo and Friends on Sports 56. Here once again is the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
We end our week going downtown to talk with commercial appeal beat writer Jonah Dillon on Tiger football and Grizzlies basketball. You wrote a great story, Jonah, this past week on MGM's futures in the American, where the Tigers, I was surprised, were picked 5th by the odds, and then the ESPN efficiency ratings had Memphis number 2, Tulane was number 1, or rather Navy was number 1 in both those categories. Did that surprise you at all? Good morning.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that Navy, I obviously going back to last season and even the past couple of years, they've had a lot of success, but when you kind of dig into it and you look at this Navy roster and what they lost last year, and obviously not able to, get guys in the transfer portal to replace that. So the fact that they're number 1 and they look like they're the favorite right now is a little bit surprising. If I was doing my rankings, I don't think I would have them number 1. At the same time, you look at all the teams that are near the top of the conference, and they all have major question marks. And so I think it's fair to kind of pick any of them. But I do think it'll be interesting when we get closer to the start of the season and there's more previews coming out and the odds move and stuff like that, if Navy is still considered the favorite. Because I think when you dig into their roster, like I said, obviously, they're excited about what they have. And a lot of guys who are going to play much bigger roles. Braxton Woodson is going to be their quarterback, and he's had success when he's played over the past couple of years, obviously not as a starter. But there's a lot of questions there, and like I said, there's a lot of questions with other teams too, but I feel like the other teams, the talent, especially with the added in the transfer portal, is pretty high.
I could see how Navy makes sense in some of these, especially the ESPN efficiency ratings, because you know what you got. Even though they lost one of their best quarterbacks in history, and they lost their machine who tackled their linebacker. And I have no idea what the replacement for that guy is going to be like. But I could see that. I was surprised Memphis was 5th, but, Memphis has so much turnover, you really don't know.
Yeah, that's really the story with all those teams. And even it's interesting because we kind of talk about, the teams that lost their coaches, right, in this conference, right. Memphis, North Texas, South Florida, and Tulane as being the teams that we expect to be at the top, right? But then you look at the odds, and you've got the top 3 is Navy, Army, and UTSA. And, Army is an interesting one. Obviously, they didn't have a great season last year, but their floor is pretty high, and it feels like they're going to be consistently at that level. I don't know that I would pick them to win the conference or even be that high, but I think, they'll be a bowl game type team. UTSA is a really interesting one. I think they're kind of flying under the radar because the past couple of years, it's been the same story for them, inability to win on the road, right. Inability to play defense at a high level. But when you look at teams at this level, I always say it, if you can bring back a coach and bring back a quarterback, you're ahead of everybody else. And they've brought back a coach and a quarterback who have been really successful for a really long time.
It is.
And so, what's that?
I was just going to say, it's uncanny, even with that coach and that quarterback who's really good, they cannot win on the road. It's inexplicable. It's almost like they got that wind machine inside the Alamo Dome or whatever craziness happens. They're a different team in San Antonio than they are anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but that's the thing with them every year is you go into the season and you look at it and you say, okay, their offense looks like it's going to be pretty good. They've won a lot of games over the past couple of years since Jeff Traylor has been there. And they're set up in terms of continuity to play at a high level and compete for the conference title. And it feels like every year we're talking about UTSA in the top 3 or 4 of the conference preseason. And then something happens during the season, and they end up finishing, middle of the pack. Right. And you look back, and the reason was they couldn't win on the road, and their defense wasn't good enough. And being able to win on the road at some level, it feels like it should be fixable, especially with all this time, and with the incredible success they've had in the Alamo Dome, which, as I've said multiple times, there's some sort of magic going on there, or it's haunted, or something like that, which needs to be investigated. But Yeah, I think when we get closer to the season and you start to unpack these rosters and these other teams that we think are going to be at the top of the conference, I think UTSA is a sneaky pick to win because when you look at their issues, it feels like they should be fixable. And it feels like there are known commodities there on a level that these other teams just don't really have.
I do love their offense and their QB. There's no doubt about that. And I'm sure this will be a future column for you, but I'm going to put you on the spot. If you were to do your rankings, who would you place as the top 6 teams?
Top 6? I think I kind of feel right now like I would put UTSA up there and I put Memphis up there. I think the talent level is there with Memphis. I think South Florida is being a little bit undervalued because people have questions about Brian Hartline and they feel like they might be in sort of a rebuilding year, but I don't think rebuilding years really exist in college football anymore, or at least they don't have to. And there's a ton of questions there. You're talking about a coach who's never been a head coach before, obviously, but I think the talent is there. That we know that the investment is there in terms of paying for the roster and things like that. I think Army and Navy will be near the top. I just don't think that they're going to be at the top. So I put them in there. And then the rest of the roster, I kind of feel like ECU I would put up there.
I would too.
Again, there's some continuity there with the same coach. They lost some guys, but I think Blake Harrell's done a pretty good job there and rebuilding something, and they have an identity and stuff like that. And then, look, the rest of it's tough to say. I think Tulane, obviously, it sounds strange to not consider Tulane to be a favorite in this conference, given the success they've had. They've been the class of this conference over the past couple of years. But I think Will Hall being their head coach is a huge question mark, and obviously a lot to replace roster-wise as well from the teams that had so much success over the past couple of years.
It does make this league intriguing. I was just going to say, it does make this league incredibly intriguing. I think it's going to be a fun league.
Yeah, no, I think even, look, we're doing this now, and obviously we'll have a little bit more clarity when we get closer to the season in terms of like some of these position battles and certainly quarterback competitions at some of these schools, which most of these teams that I'm talking about are going to have quarterback competitions. But yeah, I think when you get to the start of the season, if you ask 10 different people who are around this conference who's going to win, you could get 8 or 9 different answers, and I don't think any of them would be crazy. And I think it is going to be really exciting, especially at the beginning of the season as we see how these things play out. And all these teams, there could be a team that comes out of nowhere that plays well, and it wouldn't be that surprising in a year like this when it doesn't feel like there are teams that are clearly above everyone else. I mean, if you think back to last year, it was pretty clear there was a tier of teams that was at one level, and then there was a gap, and then there was the rest of the teams, and the bottom of the conference was pretty bad. Now, I think some of those teams are still going to be down there. If you look at SP+, Charlotte is being projected as the worst team in all of FBS. Right. And so there are going to be teams down there.
And UAB is not much higher.
Yeah, so those are, by the way, those are Memphis' first 2 conference opponents, right, back to back, and so Memphis is going to get a nice little ease into it, at least theoretically. Obviously, as we know with UAB, nothing is a given, and even Charlotte, because Memphis played a couple crazy games against Charlotte over the past couple of years. I think the middle of the conference and the top of the conference is wide open, and I think it's going to be fascinating.
Well, we're going to know about the Tigers right off the bat because they have to go to Dan Mullen and UNLV to start the year. Then they come back here for a home game to open up the new Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, and that's against Arkansas State. Now, they'll be the clear favorite in that, but you don't forget Butch Jones is the coach of a team that considers Memphis a huge rival. So that's not a given game. That's usually pretty feisty, at least for a few quarters. And then you've got to go to the number 1 G6 by the ESPN efficiency. That's Boise. So you're going to know exactly what this team is like in the first 3 games.
Well, not only that, but when we talk about the playoff race, and obviously that's where Memphis wants to be, if you win the American Conference, you would think that you're in a great position to go to the playoffs. Yeah. If you look at the playoff race, like the top 2 teams in that S&P Plus in the group of 6 are Boise State and UNLV. So if you're Memphis, you can pretty much clear out the path for yourself without needing any help. Sometimes we talk about, you got to win your conference, and then you got to hope that these other teams maybe don't go undefeated, or they lose to someone who they shouldn't lose to, just so that you're ahead of them in the rankings. Memphis can kind of just clear its own path and kind of control its own destiny with this schedule of this season. So obviously, I know fans would have wanted to play a power conference team, but in terms of who you're playing at this level, those are some strong teams, and that means that you can pretty much control their own destiny in a way that most teams at this level just never can.
I think their biggest wish would be that they had one of those two games at home. That would be a little bit better, and they're going to get Vegas, I guess, in the next few years. And don't forget, they beat Boise in the home game they did get in this series, and so that will be a lot of fun. You wrote about the 2014 playoff and how it will affect the G6. I know this: if they just went by rankings, if they had taken that into account years ago, Memphis would have been in the playoffs twice. Do you think that's how this will shake out? What will be the effect a 24-team college football playoff will have on the group of six?
Yeah, obviously we don't know until the format is finalized, and obviously that has to actually happen, which is not clear right now if it's going to. But I think that most people believe that if they do go to 24 teams, that's going to include auto bids for these power conferences, which is the point of the 24 teams, is for more of those teams from the Big Ten and the SEC to get into the playoff. And so when you look at the rankings, people are looking at it and saying, oh, this would be great for the group of six because the teams that are ranked number 24 and 23 will get in the playoffs every year. There's a reason why, if you look at the final rankings every year in the college football playoff rankings, number 24 and 25 and 23 are almost always taken up by group of six teams. And they're not at the beginning of the season, that's only at the end. And the reason is that they put those teams in there to say, look, you guys had a good season, we're going to put you up here. They can control the rankings and do whatever they want. So I think if there was a 2014 playoff, it's pretty clear that those spots would suddenly not go to group of six teams anymore.
I agree.
And so there's going to be, there's one spot. Obviously, we don't know how everything is going to go in terms of the future of the NCAA and all that. But I just don't think that going to a 2014 playoff means there's going to be more group of six teams, because if you understand the reasons for why that would happen, a 2014 playoff, the reasons are not to expand access for everybody. The reasons are for more auto bids for power conferences.
Right. And to get
and so putting more group of six teams is just not the solution to that issue.
And to get Fox in. Here's my own, here's my fear of that is, it doesn't look like there'll be any automatic qualifiers because it's going to take away championship games. You're setting up a scenario where you could get no group of six team in.
Yeah, I mean, look, it would depend on how if they kept that one spot the way it is now with conference champions, or if there was nothing, then yeah, I mean, look, I think it's reasonable to say that at the end of the season, I know I say the rankings are obviously arbitrary, but you look at these teams, and whoever the best group of six team is one of the best 25 teams in the country, usually. Now, the gap is changing because of the transfer portal and because of the talent drain, and so maybe that won't be the case, but for now, it seems like it is.
And the NIL money is also a big factor. They got a lot more to spend. Jonah Dillon, as always, we appreciate it. We'll do it again next Friday.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Thank you. That's Jonah Dillon from the Commercial Appeal. He's brought to you by Landers Cadillac of Memphis. That is the standard. All these Landers dealerships, to me, they are the standard. You're going to get the best deals. You're going to get the most money because they pay top dollar for trades. You're going to see the latest and the greatest in any kind of technology at any Landers place. But in particular, I am fond of Landers Cadillac of Memphis right there on Poplar Avenue, where you can save with the Landers Easy Pass at CadillacofMemphis.com, so you get a little bit even more. They've always got the best. Cadillac is the standard, right? They got all the new Cadillacs. They always sell fast, so I'd get there fast too. And remember, if it doesn't say Landers, you paid too much. Hope you stay dry this weekend. Maybe I'll see you out at the Italian Fest tonight or tomorrow afternoon. I know I'll see you Monday at TPC Southwood. Have a great weekend, everybody. Johnny Radio is next.